week or so, I finally finished the Clone Wars. And it's been a long time coming, right? I think I've been watching it for maybe like 2 years and 3 months. I'm not too sure, but I'm so glad that I kind of pulled the trigger and ended up watching it on a lot of people's recommendation. And you guys know, big shout out to William Aguilar for kind of pushing me into watching the show, a show that I never really anticipated ever watching, because in the past I was kind of a stubborn ass. But overall, the first 6 seasons of the Clone Wars were great. Added so much context to the prequels, to the characters, to the factions, to the scenarios. Obviously, there's a lot of hits and a lot of misses. So this video is going to be way different than my other Clone Wars videos. This one is me just talking about the last like 15 or so episodes, or 20 episodes or so that I had left to finish. I literally binge watched them for the past week or so, just rapid fire finishing them up. So I'm not going to individually break down each episode. I'll talk about arcs and the overall thoughts on the show. Right now, me, my wife, and my daughter just got back from the doctor. We all 3 have the flu. So, yeah, cool. So I watched The Mandalorian Civil War, Ahsoka's Fate, and basically season 6 is all I had left, a little bit of season 5 as well. With The Mandalorian Civil War, one of the things that I really loved was seeing how Maul and Pre Vizsla were kind of both screwing one another over, right? They both were manipulating one another, and they both knew that they were manipulating one another, but I guess they both have such big egos that they think that, you know, in the end, they're gonna prevail, despite one another knowing that they're trying to screw one another over. I loved the moments where Maul was going to each individual, like, crime syndicate and talking to their head honchos and often killing them or forcing them to join Death Watch and Darth Maul's criminal organization. I loved how that was shot. It was just ping-ponging from location to location. It was a blast. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the Mandalorian Civil War arc. The one thing that I do have an issue with, and it's just kind of one of those things that's been in a lot of shows and some Star Wars stuff too, and even Klingons, I believe, have this tradition, but like, if somebody challenges you to combat, you have to fight them, and if the other person wins, they take control of whatever power you had. That, to me, as a concept, it has just always been kind of dumb. For a few reasons, obviously, like I said, I've seen that before in things. And also, like, Death Watch wanted to put in, like, tradition so badly. They wanted to bring back the old ways. They wanted to become the Mandalorians that they were fighting to return to, right? They wanted to go back to the old ways. And the idea, maybe that is a thing of the old ways, but the idea that some outsider comes in, this outsider who obviously screwed everybody over, he's going to come into the room, break out of prison, and he's going to come into the room and people are just going to sit by and watch him kill their leader, and then just, take a knee and be like, cool, you got it, man. It's just kind of dumb to me. It's dumb. Other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed the way the arc played out. That was the only kind of meh moment for me. I like the confrontation at the end between Palpatine, Savage, and Maul. As we know, Savage is no longer with us. Maul is still around, and Palpatine is going to be using him for something. Who knows? I guess we'll see in season 7. So yeah, The Mandalorian Civil War was a good one. It felt like a very quick arc. I guess it was only 3 episodes, but it felt like a very fast-paced arc. And we saw kind of Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine, their history, their past, the feelings that he has for her, and obviously she's gone now. So you see a little bit more humanity. Well, we've seen humanity from Obi-Wan before, but it's often just kind of pushed down. All the Jedi just kind of push down their feelings, right? So when something monumental happens like this, that kind of shatters his world, I'm not going to say it's good, but the heartache of that, I'm sure, will be a looming shadow over Obi-Wan for a very long time. I also watched the Ahsoka's Fate arc, where she was accused of kind of sabotage, accused of setting some bombs and killing some Jedi and some other folks. This is one of my favorite arcs in the entire show. It plays out like, and a lot of these arcs that I watched recently kind of play out as detective stories almost. Ahsoka and Anakin, they're trying to figure out who set the bombs, who the culprits are, or culprit is. And Ahsoka is set up for the crime. She didn't do it. She goes on the run. She's trying to prove her innocence. And in the end, it's revealed that Barriss was behind all of it. Which, the reveal, it wasn't surprising to me. As I said on a live stream, I kind of predicted it, that it was going to be her, just because what other character did they show in the arc? That's the only reason I predicted it. That being said, I loved at the end the little speech that Barriss gave about kind of the Jedi losing their way, the Jedi not really being the organization that they used to be. They're kind of a military arm of the Republic. They're not the peacekeepers that they once were. So despite, her actions being, I believe, unjust and kind of irrational and, go about it a different way, you don't do these terrorist acts to get your point across as doing nobody any good. Despite the actions that she took, I think it'd be hard to disagree, but I agree with the sentiment that Barriss is putting out there. But yeah, the fast-paced, chaotic nature of Ahsoka sprinting away and everybody chasing her, it was just a constant cat and mouse, exhausting runaway attempt. A really fun scene from this arc is when Ahsoka is trying to recreate the explosion. I believe there's a droid helping her too, and they've analyzed all the debris and kind of triangulated where it would have came from. And they've kind of centralized a location where the bomb must have been, and she's walking around in like a 3D environment, almost like a holodeck, kind of like a recreation based off of data of this crime scene, right? I just love the way that was done. I loved seeing Anakin's anger, as well, a lot of times in these past arcs and the later on in the show. And I guess it's just kind of a natural progression as we know what he turns into. Anakin kind of grows less patient, more attached. He lets his emotions get the best of him, and he often can kind of flip a switch and become this ball of anger, right? So to see that continuously bubble up as the show progresses, it's nice little foreshadowing of things to come. Oftentimes he's not wrong, right? Oftentimes he's just going against the grain. Oftentimes his actions are just, and maybe what he thinks to be right is actually right. But he's kind of just going against the grain and going against a lot of orders from the Jedi Council and having a relationship. There's a lot of things that, that don't automatically turn him into a monster. They make him a human being. But the Jedi, I guess, want robots. Jedi to just be robots, I suppose. And then at the end, when Ahsoka decided to leave, that was gut-wrenching, man. To see the accusation lobbed at her from the Jedi did not trust her. They actually expelled her from the Order. That broke her heart. That was her life, right? And then they say, "Oh, I'm sorry. You were innocent. We went after the wrong person. Hey, do you want to be back in? Do you want to be back in our club?" She says no, she doesn't. It seems like a lot of what Barriss said got to her. Understandably so, right? This organization is not what it once was. This organization is not what it once was. It's kind of lost its way. There's a lot of power pushing going on and stuff like that. So I love the decision for her to kind of deflect that offer of coming back into the Jedi Order. You guys didn't want me. You guys didn't trust me. When can I count on you in the future? I love that decision. I love it narratively and as a character choice. I love it narratively because, hey, now we have a season 7. See if, obviously we know Ahsoka comes back because the trailers and we've seen her in other things, right? So she lives on, but I'm very curious how a lot of this gets kind of closed up in season 7 surrounding Ahsoka and the Jedi and everything that she's kind of left behind. I wonder where her place is now, But I loved that decision from Ahsoka to, that's all right. You keep the braid. Another arc that I watched, and dude, I cannot stress enough how much I loved the last chunk of episodes and arcs that I watched over the past week. This one's called The Mystery of Clones and Orders. This is the one with Fives dies. The way this entire arc started, with Topps kind of assassinating, I can't remember the Jedi's name, but just kind of putting her down just out of like that. It was kind of crazy. The way that kickstarted the arc was shocking and just really well done. To see just kind of the inner workings of what makes these clones tick and the eventuality of this chip that they have in their brain and they all have, and the conspiracy between all the parties involved. The folks on Camino, I had no idea that they were involved until this episode. Maybe that was never stated before, but they were involved in the creation of the clone army, and they knew what it was going to be used for. They knew about Order 66. They even talk about Order 66 in this episode. It was really interesting. I had no idea that was the case. And again, I always talk about how much I love the individuality of the clones. I never expected for that to be a thing before I watched the show. And Fives, he just kind of loves his brother. He is looking out for him. He's willing to sacrifice himself for him. He doesn't want to leave his side. To humanize the clones is always a good thing. And as I said, I never expected it in the show. I love it. I love that it's in there. And this episode certainly kind of pushes that. It is tragic because Fives dies. But not only that, it's tragic because he couldn't get the message out. He kind of knew all the secrets. He knew that the Chancellor was behind things. He actually told Anakin that when Anakin was in that force field thing kind of frozen in place. But other than that, here you are, with this secret that could destroy everything, and all of your friends and brothers who fight alongside you with a flip of a switch could become the complete opposite of what they are. And you have that secret, and you die without spreading it. It's crazy. It's very tragic. But yeah, I loved this arc. To see the chips and people kind of conspiring against one another, and the Jedi being in the dark, and the Caminoans? How do you say it? What would that be? I can't remember how they pronounce it, but those folks on Camino being involved, and Dooku basically being a part of creating the clone army, and it was just, I don't know, there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think this episode does a good job of kind of putting it all together in a nice, concise, and cohesive package. The Clovis conspiracy arc was probably my least favorite of the most recent ones that I've watched. It was okay. I do like a lot of the concepts with war profiteering. We've seen that in Star Wars before. Hell, we've seen that in The Last Jedi. You guys know I love my real-life parallels, and the Clone Wars has a hell of a lot of real-life parallels. You have your banking clan. That could be an analogy for many things in the real world. You have like arms dealers and weapons manufacturers, basically war profiteers, and they have that in the Star Wars universe as well. So real life parallels, real life, I guess you could call them political statements or ideological statements, have always been a thing in Star Wars. To say that it's a new thing is f***ing dumb. But yeah, overall, I don't really have too much to say about the Clovis stuff. In this arc, I think we find out that Dooku is behind a lot more than we initially thought, or at least that I initially thought. He basically put this entire plan into place. He also kind of oversaw a lot of. I think we find that out in the next arc. I can't remember, but a lot of the clone army. But yeah, it was okay. This arc. Like I said, as a concept, I like pulling this stuff from the real world and placing it in this Star Wars universe. You get some interesting stuff. I can completely understand why maybe some kids would think this is boring. I mean, oh no, the banking clan is raising interest rates on the Republic. Dada, what does interest rate mean? So yeah, I get the point of the arc. I like I said, I enjoy the concept of the arc. Palpatine is ultimately put in control of the banks. He's just kind of playing the long game. He's playing chess here, and he's putting himself in complete power, playing Mr. Nice Guy with a big old smile on his face. And then you got Yoda's training, kind of the mystery of immortality. It opens up with kind of the discovery of Sifo Dyas's lightsaber, his crashed ship. Now, Sifo Dyas is the Jedi who kind of created the clone army behind the Jedi Council's back. He created it in secret, and it's discovered that he had help. And he had help from Dooku. This is the first moment where, they discover that Dooku was behind the creation of the clone army, or at least had his hand in the pot. And Yoda says they need to cover up this information. Not even the Chancellor can know. I mean, think about that. That is dumb. It definitely shows a lack of foresight on the Jedi part, in my opinion. Knowing that the clones, knowing that your soldiers, let's just say knowing that your artificial intelligence robots, right, were literally created by your enemy? Imagine that scenario playing out in the real world. Oh, the enemy made all of the artificial intelligence we use for our weaponry, navigation, satellites, everything. The enemy made that. But let's just keep using it. It's okay. I mean, you now know that this entire clone army was created by one of your enemies, and you know that the clones have chips in their heads that nobody knew were there, and you know there's a lot of fishy stuff going on. But yeah, let's just not tell anybody. Let's just keep it inside of this room, right? Anyway, I did enjoy this arc more than I actually anticipated enjoying it. Whenever we kind of explore the Force, it's interesting to me because I have always kind of viewed the Force as an intangible thing. Now, granted, a lot of things that Yoda sees is probably illusions or just things that are going on in his mind that aren't actually physically there. But when there's places, and I know Dagoba's been in there forever, and I love the fact that they went into Dagobah, but when there's planets that are like Sith planets and kind of the embodiment of the Force is in a planet, and there's physical locations and stuff like that shouldn't bother me. But I kind of like my Force smaller than that, if that makes sense. I don't like a lot of over-the-top Mordor fantasy stuff in my Force. I like my Force very small and subdued. So when there's all the emotion masks like flying around Yoda, and Yoda is kind of going on this quest and these trials to kind of prove himself worthy of the teaching of basically immortality and becoming kind of an individual in the cosmic Force, I suppose. It can sometimes be a little off-putting to me. I don't know why. I don't know how to describe it. I think it's because, when I think of the Force, I just think of Yoda and on Dagobah talking about how, wars not make one great, that kind of stuff. That's kind of my Force, right? One of the things that I loved about this arc was kind of hearing Qui-Gon and him being, and I believe that was Liam Neeson's voice. It sounded just like him if it wasn't. It's kind of crazy if it wasn't. But you hear his voice, and he's kind of being Yoda's guide. He's kind of made a discovery, and sometimes Yoda can hear him, and sometimes he thinks it's an illusion, or he's going out of his mind, and sometimes the voice is louder. It's Qui-Gon. Something that I loved, a little moment, a little scene that I absolutely loved was when the entire Jedi Council got around Yoda and they all meditated together. You saw the passage of time, but none of them heard anything. It was like they're trying to contact, I don't know, it was almost like when you see a lot of weirdos playing Ouija board, right? That's what it kind of reminded me of, but in Star Wars, and it was fun, and I just kind of, I don't know, I liked it. So yeah, this arc did a good job of kind of feeding us a lot of information about the Force, but at the same time, keeping those explanations around without killing a lot of the mystery. You get your living Force, your cosmic Force. Yoda fights like the physical embodiment of his anger, his fear, his hatred, his dark side, the part of him that he casts aside, the part of him he's learned to control. It's a trial, and he sees everything as attachments. And another moment that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I kind of look at this arc very differently than I look at, let's say, Domino Squad, because this is way more trippy, right? You kind of have to separate the two. But I love the alternate reality moment where Yoda is talking to Dooku and Qui-Gon, and there's no war, and it's all peace, and everybody's on Coruscant, and it's happy-go-lucky fun. Right? I love that moment. What could have been a peaceful world. Then we see Darth Bane. Yoda's on Moraband. Sidious senses this. I liked the journey that Yoda went on to kind of discover some of the big secrets But it is, for me, there's a barrier of entry for my enjoyment because I do kind of, I do, and it is stupid, trust me, it's stupid, but I do kind of have a difficult time jumping into a lot of the more fantastical elements of Star Wars and the Force. I can enjoy it, but still have that kind of like, Star Wars to me is an X-Wing, and the occasional little sprinkle of the Force salt on your delicious, delicious Star Wars movie. So yeah, tomorrow, I believe 3 in the morning, Clone Wars Season 7 comes out. I'll be watching it at some point tomorrow. I planned on doing this video way differently, but today has been a whirlwind. My daughter, since Monday, it's now, when this uploads, it'll be Friday. But she's been sick for about a week, and we actually got back from the doctor. She's got the flu, and I haven't had time to work on anything, and so luckily I was able to get through these episodes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make this video the way that I wanted. I wanted to get in front of the green screen. I wanted to upload a bunch of pictures. I wanted to make it like a long farewell to Clone Wars and a hi, how you doing to the new season. But it ended up being just me on the microphone talking for like, 20 minutes, whatever this is going to end up being, without probably much cohesion or making much sense, but yeah. So tomorrow, Clone Wars Season 7 starts. I will be making a video tomorrow as well. I can't wait, man. As you guys know, I was always so apprehensive about watching the Clone Wars. I started this channel in 2011. And at that time in 2011, all the comments were super negative about the prequels and the Clone Wars. But over the past, I would say 5 years or so, people have really, the comment section almost has done a 180. Now there's so many prequel lovers and Clone Wars lovers, and everybody's defending what they love. The kids who grew up with the prequels and the Clone Wars are now online defending what they love and pushing idiots like me to watch a show that they grew up watching, and I'm glad they did. So, Season 7 tomorrow. Can't wait, guys. Enough of me talking. I need to take some cough syrup and go night-night.